Can you imagine the spectacle to the world? Watch this now. Can you imagine the spectacle to the world that Jamaica would be if God bestowed that same wisdom on Portia Simpson? To resolve satisfactory the territory educational problem, to restructure the nation's economy, to wipe out jobs and violence, to wipe out corruption and bring integrity to the Jamaican judicial system. Jamaica then, as compared with the now world, if you should compare Jamaica with Jerusalem back then, it would almost feel like you are in heaven. And that is just what Jerusalem had become. With the great expectation of wisdom that they enjoyed, with the great figure of a great leader, Jerusalem was the place to be. And then you come to the supreme imperfection of it all. 1 Kings chapter 11, 1 to 8. And when you go home, you can read that. 1 Kings chapter 11, 1 to 8. The Bible says, Solomon cleaved. And this word cleave came from Genesis 2. The Bible says, therefore shall a man leave mother and father and cleave to his wife. But the Bible says, Solomon cleaved into these strange women in their love. And listen, he had 700 wives and princesses, 700 concubines. And sometimes I wonder, Lord, I can't even manage the one. Solomon built a temple where there was all different kinds of sexual perversionism according to the practices of the heathen. He built that temple in the site of the temple of God, Lord of mercy, before the church. Like we were here, and he built the temple across the road. So that the church members who knew Solomon could look out and see the filth and the degradation that was taking place on the Sabbath. Israel was in bad shape. Solomon once, the paragon of virtue, the man who God had ordained to sit on the throne of David, the man whose sincere request before God became a moment of humility, the man who little Israelite boys wanted to be like, the man whose fingers gold literally drip from, stands condemned in a vicious cycle of pleasure and passion and ecstasy. But it didn't stop there. While drowning in the enticing of a turbulent sea of the world's most ferocious women, Solomon forsook God. He withdrew from God, who had by his power and establishment. His priorities became confused. His focus became discordant. His spiritual discipline disappeared like the morning mist before the rising sun. His virtue brought forth intellectual, material abundance, became the vice by which his indifference to God, his judgment became warped and not smart. Contrary to popular belief, riches and wisdom was not what brought Solomon's downfall, but rather the necessity of keeping the things of life in balance, in harmony, and in perspective. As long as he sought after God and his righteousness first, that dictate where he would have been. But we all need good balancing in our lives, beloved friends. We can't be so or too heavenly minded that we are no earthly good. Are you with me? We need to have balancing in our lives. That's why we don't only come to church and worship on the Sabbath day, but we have socials and we plan sports day so that our lives can be balanced. Because the family that plays together stays together. But the moment he seeks to watch and pray, he became entangled, beloved friends, in a web of irresistible temptation. The servant of the Lord writes, E.G. White in Prophets and Kings, pages 59 and 60. Listen to this. Prophets and Kings, pages 59 to 60. It is not the empty cup that we have difficulty in carrying. It is the cup full to the brim that must be carefully balanced. Did you get that? So it is not the empty cup that we need to be careful with. But when the cup it is full to the brim, we have to be careful of the spilling. Are you with me, beloved friends? So we need good balancing in our lives. Most of us will never reach the height of Solomon's wealth or wisdom. We too, even with what little we have, are often indifferent to the will of God. Isn't it true that much of what God has given to us in gifts, we often squander in self-indulgence? Isn't it true that most of us are much more concerned about our own pursuit of comfort rather than rescuing the perishing and